Welcome to our first masterclass. We're absolutely delighted to be sharing this with you tonight, and thank you so much for taking your time to come along. I'll just give you a wee bit of background. So we're the Islands Entrepreneurial Network, and we're funded through the Talented Islands programme, and that's in place to accelerate net zero solutions, address demographic challenges and drive inclusive innovation across Orkney, Shetland and the Western Isles. And it's supported by the Islands Growth Deal. So with funding from both Scottish Government and the UK Government, the Talented unites 3 universities, Heriot-Watt, University of the Highlands and Islands and Robert Gordon University. And we're all delivering our own work-based work packages, including the work-based learning from UHI, entrepreneurship pathways through us, and innovation commercialisation through Heriot-Watt. So we're very excited to deliver this masterclass as part of our entrepreneurship programme. And tonight's masterclass is on the island's music industry. So we have 3 fantastic speakers tonight, and I really hope you look forward to the session. And there is an opportunity for Q&A at the end, so bear with us. So we're going to kick off with Ian. So Ian McPhail is the chair of Hebcelt Festival, and we can pop a link to Hebcelt Festival in the chat as well. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Naomi. Thank you for the introduction, and it's really good to see you all here. It's a big honour being invited along, and I hope you don't find me too boring. So, I suppose starting off with Hebcelt. Hebcelt's been on the go for, it'll be 30 years coming up in 2027. Started off as a small festival on the Castle Green in Lewis, and we've remained on the same site for the whole time of the festival, essentially. And that's grown to what we have today, which is a 6,000 capacity festival on the green. I suppose one of the misconceptions about big events is that they're easy and straightforward and it just happens. But there's a lot of work that goes into it all year round. Our organisation's a board of 11 people, and we work on it every day of every week, of every month, of every year, essentially. We're all year round. Modern technology has allowed us to hold our board meetings online, and we've been doing that for years, since the days of Skype. We now use kind of other stuff, and that allows us to catch up regularly. We have monthly meetings. There's, on average, each board member puts in probably about 400 volunteer hours plus every year throughout the year. The unique thing about Hebcelt is it is run by volunteers, and to carry out the festival, I think it's about 7,000 volunteer hours in total when you include all the volunteers that come along during the event as well. Goes into kind of making it happen. And it relies heavily on a lot of goodwill and a lot of people being able to put in their time and wanting to put in their time. And one of the kind of challenges is, how do you keep people engaged while still going in the direction you want to go? How do you keep people aligned? How do you keep folk kind of pulling in the same direction? And we do that through engaging with our volunteers, talking to them, asking them, getting the feedback, and then working through the feedback as well, not just taking it for kind of lip service sake, but actually kind of going, right, what improvements can be made? How do we make the improvements? How do we implement them? And how do we get people involved in making the change as well, which happens pretty we're quite used to it, I suppose, because that's how we've been doing it since the beginning, is that involvement with folk. We I've got experience working in private events as well, and the main kind of difference is when you take, there has to be a commercial element in it, because if you're not making money to run the event's not going to run. So there is a commercial element in everything, and but with Hebkilt, because it's a charitable organisation, the money that we do make gets reinvested back into the next festival and into the community, and allows us to put on things like the community concerts, which allows people who might not otherwise make the journey into Stornoway to enjoy part of the celebration out in the community, which is really, really important. It allows us to showcase local talent and emerging talent, and support the local music scene as well. It also creates different opportunities, and from my own experience, I started back when I was 14 as a volunteer steward, and it was my cousin's mother who dragged us along to pick up rubbish and do all the kind of the nitty-gritty work, and get kind of, can you say slave labor? That's what it felt like when you're that age, you know. And but it was good. It was really good, because it kind of, it brought you in at the kind of, doing the jobs that most people tend to not even notice. It showed you how the place is kept clean, how the place is kept safe, how it operates, and how vital every single role is throughout the whole entire organization. From that, I went on to the local security team, which kind of, again, it kind of showed you how there's more emphasis on public safety, on creating a safe environment for people to, one, be able to work to build it, but also for people to come and enjoy. Then after that, in 2000, I think it was 2013, 2014, I moved into the site manager's role, which again, that's a real buzz, because you've got the, if something goes wrong, it's ultimately your head on the block because you've made the wrong decision. And that kind of taught me how to make decisions quickly and accurately, because you have a limited time on site. You go on site the week before, and you have to be open by 5:30 the following Thursday. And you have to go through all the kind of scrutineering from, environmental health, building control, the police, the ambulance. You've just got to get it all kind of right. And you don't have the luxury of sitting around the table and discussing things in great detail and at length. You've got to go, right, what's the right decision to make based on safety? Ultimately, that's your priority, is the safety of everyone. Then you have to kind of look at, weigh up your pros and cons, because regardless of what decision you make, there's going to be somebody that's not going to be happy with it. And, if you're trying to please everybody all the time, you end up pleasing no one. So you have to kind of make the most impactful decision with a moment's notice in some cases. And an example of that is probably last year. What happened was the wind got up. We were, 20 minutes away from opening on the Friday afternoon. Wind got up. Fences are getting blown down. One of the gazebos got blown over for one of the vendors. The sponsors' banners got blown away. You've got to kind of run about, get all that stuff sorted. Right, yeah, got everything sorted, and then went for gates. And then within 2 minutes of the gates opening, we got a shout on the radio saying that the top of the tent had split above the stage with the wind. So we had winds gusting up in excess of 40 mile an hour. This was flapping open, rain's getting in, and it's a show stop moment essentially. So contingency plans then kicked in. We had to pull together an emergency SAG meeting, which is your safety advisory group made up of local authority and external partners. And we decided to phone the local crane company. He was down within 5 minutes. He said, right, if we move that bus, we move this vehicles, we'll get the crane set up here. We've got a bosun's chair. We just need a volunteer to go into the bosun's chair and we'll lift them up and they'll tie the tent back together. And thankfully, one of the team members used to be in the circus, so he volunteered to go up because he had that knowledge about how the tents work. He's not scared of heights, which most of us are. And yeah, he really stepped up to the mark. Went up, pulled the tent together, tied it together. In order to perform that safely, we had to close the main stage for about 10, 15 minutes or so. Because the other aspect you've got to consider is impact on programme and people moving about the site. So that all went together. And I remember the chief inspector standing there at the end, just shaking his head going, that was bloody mental. So how the hell have you managed to pull that off so quickly? You see, it was just so precise and it just worked. It's like, well, that's the importance of relationships. And that, I would say, is for any event and for anything really, you know, whether it's an event, whether it's business, whether it's personal life, that's the kind of, you know, treating people with respect, treating them with dignity, regardless of who they are or what they do. It'll come back on you 10 times, 100 times. It's so critically important to treat people well. And I mean, that's one example of many. I mean, it happens every day during your event on so many different levels. So that's kind of, I would say that's a really kind of important thing to remember is your relationships with people. And even if you're busy and, you know, if you've got loads going on and somebody's got a question to ask you, it's kind of saying, right, if you give me 2 minutes, let me go sort this out. I'll take a note of it and then always come back to them. So I would say that's really important. I suppose with a growing scaling event, there's obviously costs. We spoke about the kind of commercial aspect very, very briefly, kind of touched on that. And costs are rising year on year. We're all aware of the cost of living crisis. We're all living it. We're all experiencing it. And we all know people that are experiencing it quite hard. And as an organisation, when it comes to pricing tickets, you need to think, right, what's your kind of, you can't go over the top because then people can't afford to go. And they won't, you know, if your ticket price is too expensive, then where's the actual value? Where do people get the value from that ticket price? So getting ticket prices getting the price right is always a challenge because you have to balance so many things. And we rely heavily on funding, Creative Scotland funding. We've been very fortunate this year to receive the part of the kind of 3-year deal, which has given us some surety moving forward with our planning. But I mean, that doesn't even scratch the surface. Your cost of infrastructure rises year on year. The cost of equipment rises year on year, and then your artist fees are going up year on year as well. And that has a huge impact on budgets. And, you know, we have a finite amount of money that we have to pull it together, and you have to make it work for that. But you've also got to be able to attract people in to buy the tickets to help kind of cover the running costs. So this year we we really hit the sponsorship quite hard. We've got a very we've got amazing sponsors anyway that help us year on year, through in-kind sponsorship. So through providing the likes of our office cabins are sponsored by through Breedens. They just book them for a job, they ship them over, and then they let us use them for 3 weeks free of charge. And otherwise that would cost probably in excess of about probably between 12 to 15,000 pounds. They provide a rake of fencing, and then 3 of their graduates come down every summer and they help us put the fence up, and we look after them. We give them kind of a rake of beer tokens and stuff like that as well. So they're getting involved in the experience. And then the financial sponsorship as well, how, getting the sponsorship packages so that the sponsors get the value out of it, but the organisation gets the input to be able to invest in talent and people and infrastructure and the overall experience. So this year we had our first sponsors event in January, and it was to pull in all the existing sponsors to say thank you to them out with the festival, because the festival can be quite chaotic. So the amount of time you can spend with it, although you really appreciate what they do for you, you're always doing something. So we decided to put a sponsors event on in January to take the time to say thank you properly, and treat them well, like they deserve to be. I mean, without that sponsorship, whether it's in kind or financial, then it wouldn't happen either. And most, probably all the sponsors always chip in. They'll come in the run up to it. They'll say, right, I've got a few hours. How can I help? Or on the get out, they'll always pop in, see how you're getting on, ask if they can help with anything, and get stuck in, if it's picking up rubbish or if it's towing something away, or it works really, really well. And then I suppose the other one other thing I'd like to kind of touch on is the environmental impact as well. So we've been, I suppose we've been, as an organisation, we've been at the fore of the greening and environmental kind of issues. We've been proactive in what we do. We're one of the first organisations in Scotland anyway to ban kind of single-use plastic straws. We've got a pretty strict greening policy as well on the containers that we use for food. We last year we used solar and batteries and wind to power our production offices and site offices. Previous years we've used hydrogen generators with locally sourced green hydrogen, which has run the island stage for a period of time on some of the vendors. We use hydrogen tower lights and kind of loads of things like that to help minimize the impact on the environment. And then that's kind of some of the greening stuff that we do, and we're always open to discuss that with folk and kind of talk through our own experiences, and point people in the right direction, make introductions, because as a community, as an events community, I think it is really important that we all work together for the benefit of the wider community. And if we can all do our bit to make that better and easier, then that definitely helps. And then I mean, I think getting involved in events from a really young age is an incredible experience, and it teaches you a lot about, I mean, where else do you get the opportunity to meet people from all over the world and work with them? I think growing up on an island, the access to external thoughts and ways of doing things can be quite limited. And, there's always the stereotypes about everybody knows, it's heard of the island ways and this and that. And there are good points to that, but there are also detrimental things to that, I believe. The good things are there's nowhere else where you get that sense of community still, like in island communities. And that is, if that could be replicated throughout the whole of the country, I think we'd be in a lot better place. That caring for each other, looking out for each other, working with each other, kind of supporting each other. But then on the other hand, if you've got a puddle and there's no water coming into it, there's no interaction, there's no movement, that puddle gets pretty stale and it becomes kind of dirty and poisonous. So it's important that there's always kind of fresh water coming in, because it keeps things fresh, it keeps it clean, it keeps it kind of invigorated. And my own personal experience through working at Hebkelt and coming up through that is my exposure to different ways of thinking, to different people, to different techniques, and building that network. So you know who to talk to for what, and if they can't help you, then they know somebody that can. And that kind of exposure, I've brought a lot of that into my day-to-day business as well, which has allowed us to apply that knowledge to, I suppose, the practicality of running a business, and allowing us to kind of grow that organically, and treating people well, and treating people right at the core of that, and creating why do we work? This is a thing I say at every interview I do. The main reason that any of us work or go to work is to create a better quality of life for ourselves and our loved ones. That is at the core of what we do and why we do it. So why don't more organizations do that together? Because if more organizations do that together, then everybody grows and gets better together. And that's kind of that, I suppose, that core kind of driver is, that was seeded at Hebkelt, and through my involvement in Hebkelt and the people that I've met there and the support that I had through that event and that organization. And I think if we can nail that, then we'll all be in a much better place. So I think I'll shut up there.
Thank you so much, Ian. There's so much in that. So I hope you were all taking notes for your Q&A after. There was just so much in that. So thank you so much, Ian. And I can also attest to how awesome Hebkelt is, and the Hebkelt family and the way of working. So yes, fantastic. That brings us swiftly on to our next speaker, Keith Morrison from We Studios. Are you there, Keith?
I'm here. Hello.
Awesome. Thank you, Keith. I'll leave it to you now.
Hello. Thank you, Ian. That was super interesting. I learned a lot myself there. Before I start with what I do and what I am, I'd first like to say that without both Hebkelt, who Ian spoke for, and Anlanther, who Alex will speak for later, without these two mammoth musical organizations here in the island, I don't think I would be doing music at all, let alone have this business. So just to a wee nod to Ian's wee bit about collaboration, I couldn't agree more. The good that we do here, we stand on the shoulder of giants, basically. So yeah, thank you, Ian. That was super interesting. And yeah, just to another wee point of collaboration. There's not a moment where I couldn't just phone anybody up in this industry, especially up here. I could walk into Ian's business, or I could phone Alex anytime, day and night. I don't need to organize a meeting or schedules or anything. The people here that work in this scene, they're very close. They're close at hand, and it's very reassuring and comforting at all times. So yeah, my name is Keith Morrison, and I am in Ness on the top of Isle of Lewis. And I'm sitting right now in my recording studio, which is called We Studio Records. And I do a lot of things. So that's really an umbrella for lots of stuff. I started off as a musician while Ian was picking litter at Hebkelt at the age of 14. I was there as a musician, trying to avoid picking up litter. So I was there with my keyboard with older kids, doing maybe not playing on the main stage quite yet, but doing smaller concerts. My parents were musicians, and I had a fantastic piano teacher who inspired me, created my love for music, and basically showed me that there's a way through life where you don't have to grow up and you can just be mucking around with your friends for the rest of your life. So that kind of seemed like it would be the passion for me. So I learned the piano and the guitar and lots of other instruments and became obsessed with it. Then I got a computing degree here in the Lewis Castle College because I didn't want to move away so I could stay here and play music more. Once I got a degree here, I decided I had to go away for work. I ended up in Guildford in England for a year, and then decided that living away wasn't for me. So I decided to move back. I think I might have been about 22, 23, and decided to create a life for myself. And that's when I started playing a lot more music and saving up a lot of money to build this business from scratch, basically. So I started in my parents' house. So all my siblings were moving out one by one, and I was taking over one room at a time. So I turned my bedroom into a recording studio. And then as soon as my older sister moved out, I got a screwdriver and smashed a hole through the plasterboard wall and started feeding cables through it. And her room became the drum room. And then my brother moved out, so there was cables going along the hallway into his room, and that's where we had the guitar amps. And eventually my parents got sick of me and kicked me out because they were sick fed up of having to tell people to get out of their house at 10 at night. And I moved into a small industrial unit in the centre of Stornoway. And I was there for around 13 years until I saved up enough money to buy this giant building. And I've turned this into a residential recording studio. So we've got an incredible view of a loch and the Atlantic Ocean and common grazings out there. We've got 2 bedrooms. One of the bedrooms has 3 bunk beds. The other bedroom, which we call the lead singer bedroom, has a lovely double bed and all the mod cons. We have a self-catering kitchen. So we have bands coming from all over the country making their way to the island to live here for a week or two and to write songs and to create music. And as well as that, we do so many other things. We do lots of live sound. So we travel about with speakers and mixing desks. And I'm just back from a tour with Peat Diesel, an English tour, and we're heading away again on Thursday. So I'm in the van with them with all the equipment, trying to keep them sounding good and alive. But I also travel the world doing music in America and Vietnam and Europe and see amazing things. And I have 3 employees here. One of them looks after the building and the clients and the distribution for the record label. So we have lots of acts here in the record label, and we record them and produce their stuff and store all their stock and merch and then send it out when people buy it online. And I have 2 other employees that are kind of mini-me's. So they work the studio. They're also musicians, but they have talents beyond mine: graphic design, web design, double bass playing, things like that. That's things that I can't do. So there's a team of 4 running this place, which is quite good for a recording studio. Normally it's, especially these days, a one-man band, but we're trying to expand. We're trying to do much more. We also do video recording and video editing of any kind of videos, whether that's music videos or corporate videos. We do live streaming. So we've got a whole live streaming setup here that we can package up and take to any venue, and we can live stream any event. As well as that, we do lots of remote services. So if people send in their music, we can mix it remotely, we can send it back, or we can record people remotely. We can send the microphones on a laptop and record it all the way in the studio here. It's quite advanced. We are developing uses for VR software for music tutors, so they can teach drums and piano and songwriting over VR, which is quite exciting. Yeah, there's so much. I forget what we do until a client comes in and asks for something. I go, oh yeah, we do that too. So there's so much more over and above, but it's mostly around the creative stuff that we thought would be fun to do. And yeah, it keeps us super busy. So how we work here in the studio mostly is a client will book us and they'll come up with their instruments and the band, and we have an open control room here. So this room that I'm sitting in, which has the mixing desk and the computers and the keyboards, microphones and everything, it's a big, massive room. Feel free to check it in the website. So everybody can be in the same room. It's completely collaborative, and you can talk just like normal. It kind of feels like a band practice. And it's not like that scary studio vibes where a red light comes on and you're sitting in a room by yourself and you get a fright. But we also have 2 ISO booths, which are soundproof rooms, which have slidey doors in them. So we can put loud things in there like bagpipes or drummers, just to keep them from bleeding into other people's mics. But most importantly, up here, the unique selling point is the place. So my last studio was in the industrial center of Stornoway, and if you were into Arctic lorries, it was a great place. But otherwise, it wasn't a really inspiring place to record, which is why I try to get out to the country and make use of the beautiful area that we have here. So we've got windows all the way along the front of the building and all the way around the building. So you have the most incredible view of the Atlantic Ocean and the sights of Ness here. And we have so much wildlife out the window. So people are recording, and every now and again they'll just shout, "Eagle, eagle!" And an eagle will be flying past the window, and lots of geese. And it's absolutely heaven up here. So we'll get people in and we'll get them recorded. And we've created this studio to be as good as any studio in the world. So the microphones that we use, the equipment that we've got here, it's a hybrid studio. So we use the best of the old world and we use the best of the new world. So it sounds amazing, but it's quick and easy to use. So people can use this equipment themselves when they come up, or they can use the talents of one of us. It's really pliable. And we record them and we edit their music to fix the mistakes or put them in tune. And then we mix the music to make it sound exactly the way that we want it to sound, and find out the way that the client wants it to sound. And then we do a thing called mastering, which just does like the final polish on it. And once they've got these tracks, they can upload these tracks to digital distribution services like Spotify or Apple Music. And that's really cheap. That doesn't cost too much at all. And if they want to go gigging and make some physical merchandise like CDs or vinyls, we help them with that process too. And it goes away to a factory, usually in the Netherlands these days. And we help them with their graphic design. When they're in here, we do photos of them. We do videos, whether it's just quick iPhone videos or we get out the proper cameras and do a proper music video. So it's basically everything you need. It's a one-stop shop. You could come up here with your band and never have had a gig, never have created a song. And by the time you leave, you could have absolutely everything you need to get a fan base, to sell your music, to create an online presence, to get a fan base, and to approach people like Hebkelt or Anlanther to start getting concerts in cool places like that. So we're basically giving artists and musicians all the tools that they need to do the next steps after that. So yeah, some of I hate to name drop, but just some of the artists that we work with that are doing really well are Peat Diesel, Heron Valley, who tour Scotland, England, and the States and Canada very often. We've got Jarad Rowan, who's a TikTok sensation, used to be called the Littlest Chicken. So he kind of came to the game backwards. Normally, the musicians come and make their music and try and get a following, and he had a massive following and then decided to start making music. So it's interesting to do it back to front, but he's doing really well. He's going to have a really big year next year with lots of festivals. And then we have lots of local acts that we help. We've got like a super group called the Tumbling Souls, who are all semi full-time musicians that come together every now and again to basically to hang out with each other. And so they come in here and record, and we do lots of Gaelic music, whether that's traditional Gaelic or Gaelic with a modern spin. We get a lot of traditional music. We get a lot of every genre, really. We get a lot of rock bands, pop bands, and yeah, lots of crazy stuff comes through the door. And on top of that, we do a lot of audio work for TV and film. So it's not just music that we do. We might be doing Gaelic voiceovers for BBC ALBA for documentaries or shows. We compose music for these shows very regularly, and then we'll get all the parts of the audio, and we'll get a video of the finished show or documentary, and we have to make it all sound good. So we have to go through every single audio clip and make it perfect for telly, and exactly what the producer wants, what the director wants, and we have to make it perfect so the technical specifications of the audio means that the show can go on live. So there's lots to it. Every day is completely different and exciting, and we see so much. But the most important thing is the people. We get to meet so many incredible people, and we learn from people every single day. And people come through this door excited every day, and they've got a big smile on their face to be doing what they love. And I'm a big believer that you become a product of your environment. So, for example, if you've always loved food and you want to become a chef, you might end up becoming a shouty person if people are shouting in the environment all the time. And I believe that everyone that works on this side of the curtain, helping people create stuff, there's an optimistic feel in the air all day long, and there's a pride in the air and an excitement that just kind of feeds into your mental health and well-being. So that's something I really love. To go into the next part of what I'm yapping on about, the world's kind of changed with music and how to survive. And against my best wishes, it's the game that you have to play. And if there's another way to figure out how to do this, I'll be the first to figure it out and help people out that way. But yeah, promotion and getting yourself out there is a tricky one. It's a double-edged sword. I mean, there's bands up here throughout the decades that could have done incredible, but they'd never really had the chance. The social media wasn't there. No one would make a trip across the Minch, and I'm sure it's the same for Orkney and Shetland. It's really hard to get your band's music out there before social media was a thing, before streaming was a thing even. Spending a lot of money on a CD without hearing a wee bit of it was a really tricky sell. So you had to get on the ferry, you had to get on a plane, you had to do gigs, and you had to do it the hard way, which was expensive. So there's a lot of really talented musicians that didn't really get a fair shot. But on the other end of the sword, you could spend thousands and thousands, make the most incredible music, and putting it onto Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon. And you could, if you don't have the personality or passion to be a content creator on social media, it's really tricky to get a fan base. It's Lewis Capaldi is such a great example. He is such a natural comedian, and he is so good at connecting with people and reading a humanist vibe of the world, and that made him an attractive person to follow, which made you, once you fell in love with Lewis Capaldi, you fell in love with his music as a secondary thing. So you've got to be kind of proficient at that to survive these days. So there's lots of acts that I try and coach, especially the ones that aren't particularly natural at it. And even if you're natural at it, it doesn't mean that it works. You've got to have a little bit of luck or figure out trends, or you've got to keep your finger on the pulse a lot of the time. And if you're spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to get numbers on social media, you're doing less time songwriting, and you're doing less time band practicing or doing gigs to get enough money to record in the studio. So it's really tricky, the balance. we try and help it as much as we do. But there's things you can do. Authenticity, I would say, is the biggest opportunity at the moment. You've got the rise of AI music creating really passable music that people in the production world like myself might not even notice. And the authenticity of who you are, AI can never take that away. So your flaws, how you talk, the things you're interested in. And if you believe in the music you're making, so will other people. So basically everything that you thought was a flaw is now your unique selling point. If you sing slightly out of tune, but it's in a musical way, keep it. If you're playing slightly out of tune chords, sometimes it's better to keep it. We're trying to convince people to record differently. We're trying to convince people to record how they used to record in the 60s and the 70s. Put everyone together in the same room, make it ugly, make it slightly wrong. Because if people hear something authentic like that, it's attractive to them now, because perfectly tuned, perfectly edited music is now like water, and it's going to get that way more and more. When AI stuff just floods the market, it's just going to be like nothing. The acts that we make most money out of are on paper terrible. they're not proficient musically. They sing with errors. They sing out of tune. It can be grating to the ear, but these flaws have created a real tangible connection with other people. And that's the most exciting thing about what we're doing right now, is trying to convince people to embrace their flaws. And it's the same with anything in the world. It's the same with photos. It's the same with videos. Things that are too polished now, is going to be worthless, I think. So yeah, a lot of the production that we do now is trying to not make it produced. So it's kind of back to front, and we're going back old school. But I'd say get yourself out there, make your profiles, make your websites, and be honest if you can. If it's in you, there's ways around that. If not, there's other things you can do. And the things that to get gigs is a really easy one in my mind. Once you've made a wee bit of proof that you're good, so that's the record some music well, invest in that, and then make yourself an EPK, which is an electronic pack kit. So that's everything that somebody like Hebkelt or Anlanta or any festival or any gig will need. And that's just a list of stuff like your promo photos, your bio, like where'd you come from and what do you do, what do you believe in. You've got links to your music, you've got links to any videos that you're doing, just everything that they need to go perfect. That's like a tech spec to just give an example of what you need on the stage. You basically just want to give one link and go, everything's there, put their mind at ease. And what you're basically doing is you're trying to imagine there's a middle person booking gigs and they're desperate to book you, but there's a board of people that they have to convince above you. You want to give that person all the ammunition that you can, so they can go, look, their social media is on point, they're really lovely, they've made this lovely music, we've got their EPK, so we've got everything we need, and they're brand new, so they're not going to dent the budget too much. I think we should give them a shot. That's the way to get in. And just to go back to collaboration and everything, like I said at the front, my business kind of has my face on it and my name on it, but there's hundreds of people that have been involved with this over just February 2008 I started officially. And I don't think I could have made this business anywhere else because of the connections that people make. Be friendly, and people are friendly back, especially in this world. Everyone's super happy to give you their advice and help you, even if you're a direct competitor. It's secondary to the community. It's secondary to being friends with someone or helping someone create something amazing. And everyone helps everyone. I feel like sometimes we're in a sinking ship on the islands with depopulation, or Ian was mentioning cost of living crisis. And if you're in a boat that's sinking and you've got 10 buckets, it's worth sharing out the buckets so everyone can help the boat from sinking and chuck the water over the side. So yeah, collaboration is vital in the islands, and it's much more important than the industry that you're in or anything that you're doing. And that motivation to help people and that drive has, I think, helped me survive over the many years. So I think that's enough from me for just now.
Oh, amazing, Keith. And I mean, I've watched your journey from the beginning, and I didn't know half of that stuff that you do. So that's amazing. So thank you so much for that. And I think it segues really nicely into bringing Alex into the room, because you've touched on some of the things Alex is going to talk about this evening. Good to go, Alex?
Yeah, first of all, apologies, but I've got a chest infection, so I've got this jazz singer's voice tonight. Start coughing then, as I say, apologies. I'm Alex MacDonald. I'm Head of Performing Arts and Cultural Projects at ALBA, which is a very posh way of saying that I book all the live stuff that comes into the auditorium. And I also, importantly for me, because I feel it's the bit that I enjoy the most, is I work on projects that promote local artists and just local culture and heritage. I want to make a wee point about that as well. Quite often with funding now, there's culture, there's heritage. But in the islands, you know, whether it's Gaelic singing or it's Shetland fiddle playing, whether that is our heritage, it's all part of that. I get quite frustrated about people separating these two things. So I do a lot of projects that promote our history and, importantly, our artists. I'm really glad now that I'm concerned with live performance after hearing Keith speak there about AI and everything. Give me the imperfect live performance every time. I started at ALBA. ALBA is 40 years old this year. And when I started in ALBA 35 years ago, can you believe that? I've employed both these boys at one time or another in various guises, and still do, and worked with them. But when ALBA started out first, it was actually a gallery. It's still referred to by some people as the gallery, rather than an art centre. So it sort of started really doing performing arts stuff. I was a general assistant, and I started nagging them to put on some more music, and it grew organically from there. So I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody helping me at that time. In the islands at that time, there weren't people doing what I was doing. So I've learned the hard way, I would say. Along the way, you make mistakes. You make a lot of mistakes. But at the core of what we do has always been that promotion of local talent. I mean, the islands themselves are a USP. Ian will tell you that for Hebcelt. Why do people come to Hebcelt? Well, sure, they want to see Van Morrison or whatever, but they also want to experience the heritage, the culture, the music, the language of the islands. And so I book in sort of the best of what is available nationally and internationally. But equally important is creating projects and shows that can go out into the world. And Keith was saying it's very hard for island artists, and he's absolutely right. Unless they get a slot at Celtic Connections by some miracle or whatever. Well, we've toured quite a few shows now over the years, and there are barriers. There are barriers for musicians who choose to stay on the island. Because I always admire people like Keith, who's gigging musician himself, who choose to stay at home. They've made that choice because the barriers for them, they've got transport for one thing. And they've got travel disruption, which I had over the weekend with artists that were coming in. There's the sheer cost of it. There should be some extra support, I feel, for island artists in that sense. And yeah, I'm making it sound very negative, but I do genuinely admire people who will run businesses and or be somebody like Keith or Will Campbell or somebody like that who has chosen specifically to be living at home, and they have to travel away regularly in order to be a gigging musician. The next thing you were asking me about was about islands working together. Now, my experience of that over the years, the most obvious one is a project called Between Islands that ALBA devised in 2017, I think it was. And again, funding is key for all of these things, because we got funding from LEADER. It was European funding. And it was in order to encourage collaboration between musicians. Specifically, it was then musicians in Orkney, Shetland and the Hebrides. Because, quite simply, I had gone to Orkney and Shetland folk festivals one year, and I thought, we've got musicians from Orkney and Shetland at Hebkelt, but they're not going the other way. They weren't actually, our stuff wasn't going the other way. So I devised the project, and the first project was actually a songwriting project. So it was Willie Campbell from Lewis, Chris Drever from Orkney, and Arthur Nicholson from Shetland. And they got together to write some new material. We then toured it. We went to Graham, we went in Maril. We did Stornoway, Orkney, and Shetland. And that was the model that I wanted to base the entire project on. We did also get sponsorship from Loganair in a rare moment of madness, I think, from the woman I went to see. She gave me flights for all of them to travel between islands, because it is extremely expensive. So funding was really, really important in that sense. But then the Between Islands project grew because I was a UHI student at the time. So I had, my course was being run from Orkney, but I had lecturers in Shetland. And of course I was going to the college in Stornoway as well. So I asked them if they'd like to do something within that project. So we took lecture from Orkney down to Stornoway, took a lecture from Stornoway up to Shetland, etc. And this thing about the importance of collaboration and actually going into somebody else's community and seeing how they do it was the most important thing of all in this. And although it has remained as a music project, I think there's a couple of things that happened within that project that were equally important, which was we created an education pack, for example, for children. So I got an artist, an emerging artist as she was at that time, called Alice McMillan here to work with an emerging artist in Lerwick, Helen Lawrenson. They created a kids' education pack what you can download. But more importantly than that, it also then opened up the opportunity for them to kind of develop their businesses together and talk to each other. So the music project kind of mirrored that. During lockdown, for example, when everybody thought nothing would be able to happen, I said, no, I'm going to get you to write new material, sort of inter-island, across the airwaves. And Jane Hepburn here wrote with Saltfish 40 in Orkney during lockdown. And not only, she told me herself afterwards that not only did that experience, she loved that experience, but they helped her learn how to record. In her home, she had to home record. So that whole exchange of skills through these, through that project. Oh, and the museums, that was the other thing. I worked with the museums. It was the first time that Orkney, Shetland and Stornoway museums had ever worked together. Orkney and Shetland did it a few times, but never with the Western Isles. So they went and visited each other's collections and saw what each other had and all that sort of thing. So that whole working inter-island thing, Naomi, which was you were asking me about, and as Ian and Keith have already said, it's these relationships and connections with people when you make them that can lead on to brilliant things. I mean, there might be I don't know, a jazz musician living in Unst. It's like, and then you find there's one living in Point here, and if you can connect people and let them have their like with the education pack, where you can help people and give them the confidence together to do something, it's brilliant. So as I say, Between Islands came to an end, apart from the music, but I've carried that on with the end of European funding. But it is also the only time ever in my life I've had somebody phone me up and offer me money. At the end of the project, I got a phone call and said, would you like more money? Pardon? Because they were really happy with what had been done. So the end of funding sometimes is the end of opportunity in that sense. And an understanding that funding is required specifically for travel and things inter-island is essential. The last thing was about booking. I was listening to Keith with great interest there about how to get a gig. I mean, he's done it successfully with me, so he must have done all the right things. But there are a couple of things I'd like to add to that. Within courses, when people are doing music courses, for example, I think a big thing that's missing from that is actually teaching these skills. It's about how to approach a venue. I wrote down a couple of things actually, because just before I came on here tonight, I got an email, one of the types that makes my heart sink. It's like one line. It's like, I'm a guitar player from wherever. I'm touring in the summer. And that is literally all they tell you. And so there's nothing for you to go on. So in addition to what Keith was saying there, what I like to see is a wee bit of initiative along with that. You know, you send me all your information. I mean, let's face it, YouTube and Vimeo and things like most people have a phone to record now. I know from my experience during lockdown, I was getting recording bands on their phone and putting them on YouTube within hours. So doing something specifically you can spend a venue is really important. Giving costs is important. If you just say roughly what we need is, I don't know, accommodation for 3 people, we are looking for a fee of around this. That is also helpful. Also, just invite people to your gigs if you can. It's amazing how in my time in Atlanta that has changed dramatically. With theatre, I get endless invitations to attend performances, but with music, that's happening less. People say, we're playing in Ullapool. Do you want to nip over and see us? Because there's nothing better than that happening. Equally, if you could get another venue to recommend you, like if Graham sent me an email saying, I've seen Keith Morrison and he was brilliant or whatever, and we that really helps. That really helps. So these are the kind of the things I look for. Most of all, be realistic as well. I used to try and reply to every single person who wrote to me, and it's just impossible now. It is impossible to do that. But if somebody has given you concise information, this is when I'm touring, this is what I do, this is how much it'll cost you. Would you like to, can you, even the fact that they're or wanting you to come and see what they do. And by the way, Graham has said you can phone him if you want to know more. That is how I would, what I would recommend happens. Not for Keith, he's booked in for November, so he's fine. Also with the festival, I just want to mention that, again, with relationships, and Lantern and the festival were together from the very beginning. And that has been really important, I think, for the growth of both organisations. We support each other when things are rough, or we've both lost funding or whatever. And we also, celebrate when something good happens. But I couldn't agree more with what both these boys have said about communities. Working in a community where you can lift the phone, where you build relationships with these people, and where you're confident that you know they'll help you. You're not going to leave me stranded like this. I think it's a real plus for the islands. And it's possibly why, going back to what I said at the very start, why these guys came home and decided to work on, quite apart from the inspiration they get from living in this environment. I think that might be part of it. Willie knows that he can go to Keith and say, listen, I need to record a track for whatever. Can you fit me in to do this? Or that the festival will support the fact that they have a new album come out and give them a slot on the stage, or that I'll create some project for them to write some new music or whatever. So it might sound twee, but it is what I genuinely feel, that is important. And carrying that sort of model that we did with Between Islands, going into the communities. I mean, I physically went up to Orkney regularly to make sure that I wasn't just talking to somebody who was funding me in an office, but that I was at, the community hall seeing whatever was going on, and I was talking to that young artist, or making a film about Fair Isle or whatever it was. So actually having the opportunity to do that is vital as well, if we're going to work in the island. I'll go back to Apelia empty.
Well, hopefully this programme will offer some opportunities as well across our creative entrepreneurship, and it's part of the reason why we've had this discussion this evening as well and brought you together. And I'm hoping the way you've all woven your conversations together, that it's, demonstrating how essential that collaboration is and how much opportunity there is when you do work together. So yeah, thank you so much. Have you got, sorry, I kind of butted in. I felt it was coming to a wrap in time for Q&A, but if you've got anything else, I think any of the three speakers have anything else you want to kind of come in with just now before we open up for Q&A? No? Excellent. So in that case, I just want to say thank you so much. You have given us such a huge amount of information tonight, and hopefully everyone can see the synergies as to why the three of you have been taken together for this inaugural kind of workshop for us. And I just want to open the floor. I do have one question that came in by email, and I'm seeing that the person who presented the question is in the room. So rather than me saying it, if you want to say it, you're welcome to. And if not, then I can open with it. I'll give you a moment. take that silence as a no. Okay, so one question came in the emails, and I think it's for anybody in the panel here. The question is, how do you feel this industry has changed over the last 10 years?
Well, I think Keith covered that quite well in what he was saying about AI. We can't avoid it. AI and the way that music has been devalued by things like Spotify and also, as I said, I'm really live performance is what my job, but you see a lot more things coming out in tour now that are not live performance, shall we say. Tribute acts. Am I allowed to say that? Yes, surely. It's the truth. Somebody with has got a pre-recorded backing tape and can karaoke. There is a rise in that, because it's easy, I suppose. But that is one of the big changes. And also maybe during lockdown, where the devaluation of the arts generally, where it was right at the bottom of the pecking order in terms of being supported. And it always struck me as a bit odd, because during that time, everybody relied 100% on the arts to keep them sane, whether it was telly or books or music or whatever. And there's a little bit of a hangover from that as well in terms of where it comes with it. I mean, Ian and I have just recently discovered that we're not getting funding from our local authority, for example. And that will be put in the context of education. I don't know, anything that's going to make you feel terrible that they've put it in that order, but it seems to be slipping back as funding is becoming tighter for everybody.
I agree with you there, Alex. That's definitely one of the things. The other thing I'd add to that is people coming through, and like, it's young people getting involved and actually helping. One thing I would ask is, if you know any young person and there's a gig on in one of the local venues, if there's a festival happening, and if they're sitting about doing nothing, like playing their computers or whatever, it's encourage them to go along. They'll be welcomed, and the experience can lead to so many opportunities down the line as well. And that's definitely dropped off, as the amount of people getting involved and putting these things on and kind of helping out.
I'd like to I agree with everything Alex and Ian just said. It's harrowing. There's so much bad things arrived in the last 10 years, but just so not we don't lose everyone that is thinking that this might be a terrible industry to jump into now. There's lots of, I'd say, technological changes that have given me a lot of optimism. Most of the young musicians that I have in here now didn't have proper music lessons. So maybe they didn't get music lessons at school because that stopped, or because their parents couldn't afford private music lessons or instruments. But there's so many musicians now that have sat at a keyboard with incredible free tutorials on YouTube and accelerated their talents all by themselves. And I think that's the most beautiful thing, is that we all have devices that are relatively cheap compared to how they used to be. We all have equipment that is relatively cheap compared to how it used to be. And access to these things can be free. You can learn. There's so much power in your phone now, or your little computer, your tablet, that if there's a way, every time there's a way to stop that iPad being a distraction and to become a tool, to become an expert at something for free, I find that lots of people are just grabbing that opportunity and yeah, just becoming, you know, incredible at, you know, whatever passion they want to be good at. So there's the good, there's more bad than there's good, but there is some amazing things over the last 10 years that we didn't have access to, I suppose, when we started.
Thank you so much. So yeah, pros and cons. I'm glad we ended that on a positive as well. Chris, so you wanting to come in there?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions actually. So thanks, Alex, Ian, and Keith for your talks. I'm really delighted that Keith said that because I play guitar, but not very well, and so I'm delighted that there's still chance for me when I hit those duff chords every so often. But you spoke about your piano teacher, and I think, you know, having role models and men, you know, that I can't remember if you said it was a male or female, but that person inspired you, you know, to take, you know, music as a kind of on a journey with you. And I think particularly in entrepreneurship, I think we continue to need kind of good role models and mentors to support, particularly we're talking about the young people as well. So I'd like to kind of get your take on that in terms of the role of mentors and role models, and particularly in the island setting. And then I had a question for Ian, and just wanted to know what does the future hold for Hebcelt? What's going to happen in the next sort of, where will Hebcelt be in the next 5 years?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, you said pretty much exactly what I would have said. Yeah, Andy Yearly, probably the place wouldn't be the same musically without that man coming home after studying in London and just teaching his entire life selflessly. And not only has he been a role model for me to learn music and make that my life, but I completely recognize how he changed my life and how he made me the best person I could be. It's not just learning piano. It gave me self-confidence and it changed who I was. It made me a different person. So the real inspiration that Andy gave me was to pass that on. I try and pass that on as much as I can with it's not just young people. Anyone that's doing this, I want to help them enjoy it and get amazing things out of it, and, you know, embrace the community, and hopefully that just, you know, it just spreads 10 times more like branches on a tree.
Where will Hebcelt be in 5 years' time? Lewis Castle Green, Stornoway, third weekend in July. But on a serious note, I mean, we're constrained, as most island communities are, by transport and accommodation. We're happy with the size we're at, and it's about kind of concentrating on the value add, basically. What improvements can be made, what, you know, what other things can we do to positively impact the community. And one of the things we're exploring just now is bringing in an apprentice to support our festival operations coordinator. And it's looking at ways to try and invigorate and encourage people into the industry, where you're getting learning, where you're getting, you know, we need to break the stigma of it's not a real job. We've all heard that, we've all been there, and the thing is, you've got some of the most incredibly talented people that work in the industries, and, you know, when you add an island or a rural dimension to that, you 10 times it, because, you know, you don't have the luxury of relying on the expert that's 2 streets down and 4 floors up. You're the one that has to adapt and overcome, and that gives you a really unique mindset for growth, for stability, and also, you know, creating opportunities to share that. So like Keith said, it's about kind of spreading that. So I would say kind of 5 years time, we want to have, you know, it's been in a position where more people are involved and more people are getting the benefit and the good from that involvement as well.
Thank you so much, Ian. Thanks, Keith, as well for that, answering the question. And I'm seeing Maria, you've got your hand up. Want to come in?
Thank you. Probably two questions on this one. So the first one is, we've heard a lot tonight about how collaboration is key through all of this. And as someone who would be coming into the industry, is there one place that you could direct them to go, right, this is everything you need to know, this is who you need to speak to, this is where all the information is? Or is it a case of it's quite sort of quite widely spread, and it's not what you know, it's who you know?
Well, I suppose since I'm the business owner, kind of makes sense for me to answer. I would say the first place I would go is to look for, there's lots of support at the very, very beginning. I always direct people towards Business Gateway, and the advice they give you is second to none, and they always let you know about any funding opportunities as well for startup costs. So that might be grants or loans. Highlands and Islands Enterprise always have good people there, which direct you to things that might be available. Depending on whether you're, well, it's all about funding really when you start up. Yeah, Creative Scotland might have things you can get involved with, local projects looking for commissions or things to get involved with. That would be the first places I would start. Get your business, the boring stuff in order. So make sure you're doing the taxes right, your accounting, everything like that. Because it's something that once that's set up, you've kind of got a roof over your head and you can start working, you can start getting busy, and you know exactly all the steps you need to do to have a good foundation to have your creative business. So that would be the first things, and then just have a look around and copy people that are doing well is the first thing I would say. Like, I want to be that in 10 years, what did they do? And even get in touch with them and say, what did you do? And you get a head start that way, I would suggest.
Okay, thank you. That kind of beats me to my second part of my question. So excellent, thank you.
And also, a really good starting point is our creative entrepreneurship program, which is covering Shetland, Orkney and the Western Isles, to get you to that place where you can go to Business Gateway and to HIE with your business plan in hand. So we have some of our participants from this cohort in the group tonight. So hopefully this will reassure you that that's a good step to take. Maria, did you have a second part of your question, or was that quite answered in there?
That's fine, Keith covered it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions for the panel? Christine?
Maybe not so much a question, but an observation. I really took a lot from what you all said, Ian in particular, in volunteering. And I have just above me my lanyard out from Westry Connections, which is a fantastic festival. And I arrived off the boat, and I actually didn't volunteer, but I was roped in to do the raffle, which is always a key moment. But it gave me a great opportunity to meet all the musicians, to meet everybody there, and it really just shows. And I have volunteered a number of times for Orkney Folk Festival as well. So I think it's about encouraging people at all ages and from any background to do that. And I know that HIE here, they offer volunteer days, and a lot of the people that work in the offices there, they volunteer at the different festivals. So maybe supporting businesses to do that as well. And also just thinking about collaborating, not just within music, but within design, and through our creative entrepreneur programme, there's opportunities there. I was involved this year in a design of the pop-up bar at the Folk Festival, and it was a great opportunity. And Ian, as you were saying, there were people that I met that I wouldn't have crossed paths with otherwise, and we had this amazing opportunity to create this huge backdrop with these massive sails, and we had no idea how we were going to get them up there safely. But thankfully there was this guy who had come up to volunteer, and he was a roadie all over the world, and he knew how to suspend things safely, so we didn't have to actually get up a ladder once, thank goodness. But it really opened up my eyes to working across the sectors. There were other people from food and drink background doing pop-ups, and it just brought that community together. And I think it is a case of encouraging people to get involved in any shape or form, because once you've met people once and you've built those relationships, you never know where it's going to take you. So thank you very
100%.
much.
100%, Christine. It is. It's, you know, you can meet somebody this year and it could be 2-3 years down the road and somebody else is talking to you about something. You go, hang on, I know somebody that can help you, and you make that connection, and it just works so well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Christine. And it's always great to spotlight the other festivals in the islands as well, and the power that they hold in terms of this kind of piece and the opportunities across the islands, because each has its own unique projects and pieces and opportunities. I'm sure Graham from Mariel would also agree with that. That's just a gateway of opportunity, I guess, for creatives from all different industry and sectors within that in the islands. Are there any more questions? We're into our last 5 minutes, so if you've got a burning question, really now's the time to bring it, or a comment, an observation. Hopefully not an addition. I don't know if that was maybe an addition earlier. No? Well, I think with that, unless anybody else, the speakers, if you've got any last comments, but if not, then just a really, really big thank you for a fantastic evening, really thought-provoking, exciting. I feel the energy in the room around the creative industries in the islands. And Maria, you were saying, is it a case of what you know or who you know? I think there is an element of who you know, and they're in the room. They have a lot of knowledge, and like Keith was saying, if you don't know something, there's somebody else who will. And Ian, you said that as well. So yeah, thank you so much for everything you've shared with us tonight, and hopefully we'll see you again in the future.
Well, thank you, Naomi. I think I would
Excellent.
just like to add one thing, and it's, you know, it's believe in yourself, but also surround yourself with people that believe in you as well, because there are minutes when your belief in yourself fails and falters. And if you surround yourself with people that do believe in you, when you hit these shit moments, you've got people you can turn to that'll reignite your spark. I think that's kind of the one thing I'd like to add at the end, and just thank you all again for your time this evening. It's been great.
Thank you very much, Ian. Oh, well, thank you very much. Bye, everybody. Hope you have an exciting night ahead, and keep safe travels for the rest of the week.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. Yeah, we'll see you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good, we'll see you,
Cheerio.
Alex.
Bye.